Hi. Hello. Am I audible? Let me check. Hello. Yes, I am audible. Hmm. Hi. Hi, everyone. Hello. Type something in the chat to confirm I'm clearly visible and audible to you. Hi. Hi, Piyush. Hi, Karthik. Hello. Okay. Okay. So people are there joining. So you were there in the last string? Who were there in the last string? Hmm. Who were there in the last string? We can understand that what we have discussed and what we are going to discuss. Hi, 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 Vishu. So, in the last stream that we have done on Friday, we have discussed one thing. What was it? That how React works behind the scene. That how Reacts operate behind the scene, right? We have discussed fiber architecture, virtual DOM, reconciliation, CRP, right? We have discussed those kind of topic. That was, you can say, covered in depth to get you the understanding that how actually React goes to certain node and try to update that, right? We have also seen that how this name React came into picture, right? If somebody is saying, what do you mean by React? React is not something that is just coincidence, or React is a not name that has been given by a coincidence. No, React is something that primarily works with DOM, okay, obviously virtual DOM. But before this particular agenda was there, we were using HTML, CSS, or JS. You can say vanilla JS. We were using pretty much jQuery's, vanilla JM, or we were utilizing this property, or you can say DOM APIs, and we were selecting the node and we were changing the node, and we were very comfortable around it. But there were some problems that were existing when I was trying to manipulate the DOM. The problem was whenever the DOM was very heavy, right? So complexity of iterating the DOM, changing the DOM, and repainting the DOM was very high, right? You can say O big O of n cube n for n ki power n ki power k plus n. These kind of complexity were there, and whenever these kind of complexity come into picture, your iteration becomes very difficult. And let's suppose you are able to iterate the DOM, but then you have to change the norm. Obviously, let me just share my screen, then you will be able to understand. Tell me, you are able to see my screen. I hope you are able to see my screen. Now, what we were discussing in the last class is when we were having a, let's suppose, a normal DOM, okay, simple DOM we were having like this was the DOM that I was having. Now the problem was with this DOM is कि whenever I want to change something, whatever I wanted to change, let's suppose I wanted to change this node or content of this node, whatever it is. If I wanted to change a certain node, what was the, you can say, process? Process was simple. I need to iterate this node, then left, then right, then left, then right. Let's suppose the height of the tree is 1, 2, 3. This is 3. I will be saying the height of tree is 3. So let's suppose I am taking O of n cube. Let's suppose. What I am taking O of n cube or O of n cube plus 1, or that is not an optimal approach. And the moment I am taking this particular axis of that particular node and I have to replace that node, that means I will create a virtual DOM, right? I will create a virtual DOM with the new change, that is going to be new change. And then I will going to compare this virtual DOM 1 and this virtual DOM 2. That is a V1 compared by V2. What I'll do? First, I'll create virtual DOM number 1, then I'll create virtual DOM number 2, and I'll compare both the DOM. And by using a single algorithm, by using a algorithm named as diffing algorithm, that means when we were using diffing algorithm, I was just comparing virtual DOM number 1 to virtual DOM number 2. And after that comparison, whatever the changes I have to replace, I was replacing those changes directly. So rather than reloading whole this particular page, I was only reloading the required part. And that's how we were able to solve the problem of reconciliation by using virtual DOM. But as I told you in the last, you can say, class or last session, that whenever I was using virtual DOM was a concept till version number 16 of React. Okay, till the time we were having version number 16, we were okay to have virtual DOM. But the moment from that virtual number, you can say version number 16, we kind of felt something. We felt कि whenever I am trying to compare and reload, the problem is there कि every change is happening in a synchronous manner. And what do you mean by synchronous manner, and what is asynchronous, what is batch? We have covered in the last live session. What is commit, what is render, right? So whenever I am making any change using virtual DOM, those changes were synchronous. Now, what was the problem with synchronous? Ki whenever, let's suppose I am trying to animate or trying to render an animation that have multiple frame, and I have second task that is having some importance. Now, what will happen actually? Until unless I am not completing this particular task, I was not able to, you can say, put a notation onto this. I will not able to start this particular task, and that's why this particular thing was known as everything or none. Either I will do at one go, that means everything I'll update. Otherwise, second case, I will not update anything. That was the scenario. So what we replaced this virtual DOM with? We replaced this virtual DOM with a concept called fiber, right? And fiber was the concept that came into picture in 2016. Not 16, I will say, I will not quote the date because I don't remember the exact date, but I will quote the version exactly. Fiber was started from version number 16. And after version number 16, what was the actual algorithm, or before the version number 16, what was the actual algorithm? Actual algorithm known as reconciler. And reconciler was doing a synchronous update, and this is one known as virtual DOM. Now, what I did actually after version 16, we try to rewrite this algorithm thoroughly, and we rewrite this algorithm to an architecture named as fiber architecture. And now we became synchronous to asynchronous. And what was asynchronous? What was the benefit of being asynchronous? Was simple. I was able to perform this task as well. I was able to prioritize the second task as well. I was able to do incremental rendering, I was able to pause, I was able to reuse the work that I have done before. That means it was a smarter approach from converting from synchronous to asynchronous. In this method, this particular reconciler that was known as virtual DOM was renamed as Fiber. And I have also pasted one link of GitHub repository, the official documentation for Fiber in the last class. So I hope before you jump on to the next one, you would have seen this particular Fiber architecture. Now, in this particular session, what we are going to understand few things. That is how props actually works, what is a state, what is prop drilling, what are the solution of prop drilling, and how what are the pointer that you need to keep in mind by dealing with the state or the props. Because in the next session that is coming on, let's suppose Friday, we are going to dive into Redux context API and Zustand and recoil, because that will be a hardcore state management class. But state, because before we jump onto high end state management class, I wanted you to feel the little bit the awe of state management fundamentals. How actually get managed, or how the fundamentals that are working behind the scene in order to manage your state globally or either locally. Right. Now, first thing first that I wanted you to understand is कि before you jump onto anything, you need to understand one thing, that there is something called props and there is something called state. कि whenever you are dealing with any component, let's suppose you are having a component and that is having a card component. Let's suppose at a card function that is holding an image, a username, something like that. Let's suppose it is holding a name, it is holding a role, it is holding a avatar URL. Let's suppose you can say image URL, right? Now, if I'm saying you have to understand let's suppose one thing that is called, what do you mean by props and what do you mean by state? There are two things or fundamental concept. Before you dive into state management, you need to understand that first, what actually state are, what actually props is. Now, everybody knows what is component. Everybody knows now what is component. Component means a smallest unit that is possible to make your, let's suppose, UI. Because when we were studying HTML, back in the days when we were learning HTML, we knew that the majority of the thing, or let's suppose smallest unit possible to make a UI is called element or tag, right? And before we understand anything in UI, you have to understand one thing, key tags and element are having a much more importance than anything in the structure. Now, same in React.js, we have the component. Component is not anything, component is not a new thing, component is just a function which can be reused. That's why it is known as a reusable component. That means whenever we are trying to make any UI with React, you need to understand that the UI or component is just a function which I can reuse. And reuse in the sense, I can utilize the same component with different data. Let's suppose there is a classroom and I want to make a mark sheet of each and every student. So the format of the mark sheet is similar, but I just have to replace the name, the number, the contact, the father's name, mother's name, address. That's it. That means if I am not creating the same format again and again, what I can do, I can create a journal, you can say a journal format, and I can just replace the detail with them. Simple. What I can do, I can create a simple mark sheet, right? And I can, you can say, create a variable which will take the value every time I render something, and it will be just like that argument and parameter. Let's suppose I'm having a function which do 2 plus 2. What I'm having a function which will do 2 plus 2. So if I'm writing this particular function 2 plus 2, this can only return me 4. Let's suppose, because this function is hard coded for the 2 plus 2 logic. Now if I want to write 3 plus 3, that means I have to write another function for 3 plus 3, that will return me 6. Simple. Now, every time I want to do any calculation, you would say, sir, you have to make every time a new function. But what is the benefit of creating a new function every time if I have to write the same logic again and again? So what I can do is, instead of that, writing those logic, I will be writing function. I will be writing a plus b. That means rather than using 3 plus 3, 2 plus 2, I will write a generic function or that will return me a plus b directly. And whenever I'll call that function, I will pass 2 plus 3 and I can pass 3 plus 5. I can pass 7 comma 7. That means a can be given the first argument, b can be given the second argument. And this is known as HOF, or you can known as general function. You can also known as a polyfill. So whenever you are in JavaScript, there are a general function, a higher order function, which will take another function or another logic inside their argument and will be able to return you the result, which is beneficial. You would say ki, if I go with this approach, that means a custom approach for every function, 3 plus 3, 2 plus 2. So it will be very hectic for me to write this much of a logic. So what I can do, rather than writing a logic which is custom, I will write a logic which is generic. Same here. If I am writing a card function or card component which will take a student name, let's suppose student role, a student avatar URL. So rather than doing this for each and every student, I can make a journal structure and I can pass the detail. But the problem is ki whenever you are passing, every time you are rendering a function, look at this. Whenever I am calling a function, I am passing a new detail. That means function is same, but it is receiving new detail. And that's why it is known as argument. Now, in the function, you can pass argument or you can pass props as well. So whatever the properties you are passing in the card function is known as props, and props is the shortcut form or you can abbreviation form of properties. I can make a structure and I can pass the property of the structure every time I want to reuse it. So that is a, you can say, story behind props, but there is a certain rules. What are the rules with props? So you need to understand first rule that props can be passed from parent to child. That means if you are using props, if you are using or dealing with props, you need to make sure that props are being passed from parent to child. There is no other way around. Until unless you are not dealing with prop, you can say state uplifting or drilling kind of method, this flow will be same, parent to child. But there is a second rule कि whatever props is being passed to child cannot be mutate. That means it is known as immutable. कि you cannot change the props. कि whatever value I am giving to you from the parent to child, you can only read that value. That is called only readable allowance is there. You cannot change it. And every data that is coming can be externally configured, and it is similar to a function argument. And if I say okay, this is the props that I am receiving in the child component, can I change the props? Can I change my own props? No. Answer is no. You cannot change your own prop because you are receiving the props from the parent itself. Now, if I'm using similar kind of props, listen carefully. If I'm using similar kind of props in multiple component, if I'm using similar kind of props, I will receive similar kind of output. That is called similar output, and that's why it is known as pure function. Have you heard about a term called pure function? Anybody? Have you heard about a function named pure function? Because what actually are pure function? Which is showing the same result everywhere with the similar kind of props, and that is known as pure component or pure function. Now, on the contrary or on the other hand, State is having something else. State is something else. State is called internally managed protocol. You can say state is a component's internal value. So that will be owned by component itself, owned by component, and can be managed internally. That means you can mutate this. The second pointer is key state is mutable. Okay, and if you try to configure it because it's an integral or or internal part, it can change the data over time. That means dynamic data feeding. I can do dynamic data feeding over time because whenever I want to change something, I will be able to change. And because in state or in props, it was considered as the function's argument because component is a function and I'm passing a different value. But whenever it comes to state is known as private memory of the component. That means each and every you can say component will have a separate memory, and you will be able to use that memory rather than using or relying on the props, right? Now after that, if component want, actually component can change their state. What I mean to change their state, because the state is mutable entity. If you want, if component want, component can change the entity dynamically or change the data dynamically, right? After that, if I'm saying in the last part, because props or you can say was a pure function methodology, but whenever it comes to state, if I'm saying, if I'm passing a same properties, right, I'm using same properties but a different state. Let's suppose I'm having a different state and same property, output will be different. That means this particular combination is not a pure function or pure you can say component. Now, that is the technical jargon of it. But if I talk about a simple analogy, or let's suppose simple example to understand what is a state and props, let's try to take a example of, let's suppose what I can take. Let's suppose take an example of pizza house. Okay, let's suppose you are at a pizza house and whatever you are ordering, let's suppose you are ordering a, let's suppose large margarita. You are using a large margarita pizza. Whatever you are saying will be working like a props. And why props? Because my chef, my kitchen, or whatever is there to process your order can read this particular order, but they cannot change it. They cannot do it. Let's suppose a large pepperoni, or let's suppose large pepperoni with thin crust. They cannot change the value whatever I am passing. So that is known as props. Ki whatever I am passing from outside cannot be muted. It can only be, you can say, read, and it can be only processed. Now after that, what can be the state inside it? Let's suppose state is somewhere that is managed internally in kitchen. That suppose there is a prep board of a kitchen, let's suppose, and kitchen will be managing where is the dough to make, where is the filling that I want to manage. That means these things are dynamic, and that can be changed, and that can be mutable because it's a state. And that's like kitchen's own memory. Kitchen will manage their own state. Either there is a separate kitchen, individual kitchen, or you can say mixed kitchen. Every kitchen or every part will have their own state that they can manage. And this is a major difference between state and the props. Now I hope you are understanding what is the difference between state and the props. Now, I will also show you a little bit of coding that what actually props works and how actually state works. So let me just open VS Code with me, so I will be able to show you. I'll just share the screen. Now you are able to see my screen. Okay, I'll come to this Kiro or my VS Code editor or my code editor. What I'll do, what I'll actually will show to you, I will show you what actually state is and what actually props is. I will show you both in the action before we move ahead. Let me check the comment section. Yeah, hi, Kashmir Vishu. Now let's jump onto the properties, or you can say let's jump onto the props. I'll come to the folder. There's a React application that I have created. This is the app.jsx. I'll remove this app.js. I'll keep the RAFCE part only. Simple RAFCE part. Now, what actually will happen and what actually I'll do, I will try to create two function, simple two function. And these function will be like this. Okay, let's suppose I'm having a functionality. Let's suppose I'm having a function. Let's suppose function name is user. Let's suppose user card. Let's suppose this is a function. And what I want, this function will try to process something for me. What it will process, it will return me something. Okay, what it will return me, let's suppose it is returning me a div with the data or whatever the data I want, anything it can be there. Now I can keep this particular thing somewhere else if I want. If I call this particular thing in the app, it will be much beneficial. But problem is कि I want to create this user card for multiple people. Listen carefully. What I want to create this particular user card for multiple people. And if I want to create it for 10 people, so I have to create this user card for the 10 times. That was the problem that I was having with the argument, right? So I wanted it to solve. So how actually I will be able to solve? Because by passing props, and as you know, props is something that flows parent to child, parent to child. That means props, that is a props propagation. That's how your props is going to flow. That means I can pass, because app is a parent, I can pass some value from that parent to that particular child that I wanted to use. Let's suppose I wanted to pass certain thing. Let's try to create a structure first. Let me try the structure. I will have a, let's suppose h1. In h1 I want to print username, and I will say username is variable username. Let's suppose username. Now, after that, let's suppose I'm having a h2 as well, h2, and h2. Let's suppose I'm having a role. What I'll do, I'll say role. Let's suppose I'm having two entity only, or let's suppose one more entity as well. Let's suppose we are having a h3 for age, and I can pass or age. Simple. That means I'm having three variables to fill if I wanted to do that. Now, if I'm you can say using this component right here, I will be able to use this component user card, and I will be able to pass this value as an username. Let's suppose Rohit, role is a admin, age is 24. What actually I'm doing? I am passing the data from parent to child. Now, because still this particular functionality will not work, will it? Let's try to start this. I will say cd state props and npm run dev. Okay, you will be able to see nothing is working. Go on to inspect, try to console. That means username is not dev. That means there are certain errors that is coming. Now let's come back to this, and first thing first, let's remove this css, so it will be much better. Okay, now what I want to provide this username, role, and age. This is called props definition. Right now, if I want my component to use this props, I can fire props like this as well. I can destructure my props directly. What I want username, I want role, I want age. Simple. The moment I do this, and let's come back to the screen, you will be able to see what actually I am seeing. Username is there, Rohit, role is also there, and age is also there. That means if I wanted to use this component again, let's suppose this is a component which is a generic function. Simple. If I want, can I change the username over here? Yes, I cannot. Obviously not. We cannot change this because this is internal value passed coming from the parent. That means this flow looks like a parent to child. But can I read this? Yes, I am able to utilize this value just by consuming the props. Now, if I wanted to use the same component again, will I have to create the component again? Answer is no, I don't have to create. I can copy the same component with a different value. Let's suppose I am using this, and let's suppose I'm using this as well. Let's suppose I'm having a I am using this component 3 times. That means that's why it is known as component reusability. I am utilizing a single component, right? I am utilizing single component with the different data. Look at this. In a single component, I am not writing this particular user card again and again. Look at this. You can see the code actually key. I'm not writing this component again and again. User card is a simple function that I have created for the first time, but every time I require that particular thing, I am using that particular function with a different data. Now, this is for what? This is for, let's suppose, props. But what if I wanted to have a, let's suppose, state? Because this is a props in action, I can also have a state in action. Let's suppose I wanted to show you that how actually state will look like. So for that, let's try to remove this, and I try to write this here. I'm having a function. Let's create a component name like .js. I'm having a function. Simple. What I want to have a simple creation or simple function which will have some state, which will have some function. Or forget about anything. I can directly show you something that will be much better for you. I can use this, and I can import a hook called useState. Whenever you want to deal with a state, you need to have a hook named as useState. The moment you import useState, you get the ability to manage the state internally. Now you are not relying on parent, or you can say grandparent, for certain kind of behavior. Now let's suppose I'm having a function that is having a like button, which will update the like every time user clicks on something. Now what actually I want over here, this particular thing, I can destructure this const. Let's suppose this is known as like count, and what else? This is called set like count. Set like count, and initially it will be user state 0. That means initially I don't have any like. There's initially it is 0. First one is number of likes, or second one is a method which will update the like. Now let's suppose I want to have a one more state, because as you guys will be knowing, or if you don't know, you can have multiple state in the component. Let's suppose I wanted to have number of state, or I want to check if whether user has liked this post or not, user has liked this streaming or not. So I can take a state of const is liked or set is liked. Simple. Or initially I'll say user state false. What actually I'm saying, key user has not liked this stream or the post. Currently I wanted to manage the state as well. Now actually what I'm trying to say, let me just give you the understanding. Actually, in this particular thing, the number of like count that I'm having is residing in this component only. That means this like count is going to live inside this component only. That means this component will have. Now, is there any outside entity? Is there any entity which is lying outside which can give me something like this? Answer is no. That means if I wanted to say, I can also say nobody from outside, nobody from outside can pass it because component owns it. That means component have this state, so nobody else can interfere. And this is just like having your own memory. Each and every component will have their own memory. They can manage it. Now, after having a state, what I can have one function. Let's suppose I'm having a function. Function name is handle like. Let's suppose handle like. And why I'm having a handle like, let me just give you understanding first. I wanted to have a button over here. It will be much easier. I'll say you want to you can say click on like, let's suppose like, and on instead of like I will be able to pass, let's suppose on click I'll say handle click, or let's suppose handle like. Simple, right? This is a simple thing. Now, if I want to write ki when somebody will click over this particular entity, I want to update the number of like. Fair enough. How will I update? I will write this custom function that is a handle like. I will be able to, you can say, operate on this logic like if, what if I'm checking if this post is already liked? What I'll check if this post is already liked. What I will check is liked. If this post is already liked, what I'll do, I'll say set like count is equal to like count plus one. That means if the you can if I'm not sure if the post is already liked, I will be reducing the like. Let's suppose I will not be liking it, but I will also do one thing that is a set like. What I'll do, set is like false. If this particular post is already like, you don't have to increase the count of the like by clicking over again and again. Else, that means if the condition is like this, key user has not liked it, then what I'll do set like count is equal to like count plus one. Now I will do plus one and I'll say set like is true. Now post has been already liked. Now, if you want, I can show you something like this. If I wanted to do a h1, I can pass the h1 right over here, or you can say spin. I can fire a number of like count, and I can also say key is like true or not. Now look at this particular thing, or come to app.jsx. What I'll say, I'll remove this, I'll update this, and I wanted to render a different component. Component name is like button. I'll use like button. Okay. Now I'll go back and come to the screen wala part, and I'll show you one thing. When I click over this, 1, 2, 3, because whenever I'm saying like, that means one like is there. If you're trying to again relike it, that means already zero like. That's why I'm making it true and false. It is not a counter application. Again, look this very carefully, because if I wanted, I could have created a like, or you can say counter is much easier to understand, but I'm also trying to give you the understanding I can have two state working simultaneously to get your state update of like count as well, or true false as well. Now you have to understand, you have to think between this phenomena. Key for every piece of data that you are using, does this component own this data? Will I be able to say if I'm trying to utilize each and everything into this like count is like, so is it coming from outside? Answer is no, it is not coming from outside. It is being managed internally. But if the component is controlling, right, so when and how the state is being changed, right, and that can be the entire you can say different phenomena that happens. So that is a major difference between state and the props. state will be managed by, you can say, internally, that's a separate memory. But if you wanted to manage it with props, look at this, because if you wanted to manage a certain you can say a condition which have a props and the state together, that can be also done. Let's suppose I am going to make a component for you that will be making it easier to understand that props and state can be there, you can say, simultaneously. Let's suppose I wanted to have a card, or that can expand both title and the content. So I'll say expandable card dot jsx. I'll use RAFC. Simple. I have a card which can expand when the title and the content comes. Now, from where I'll fire the content? Obviously, you will say, "Okay, sir, you have to go with props." And answer is yes, you have to fire a props. Now, let me just show you how actually props and state works together. Props plus state works together, can work together. How they can work together is key in, let's suppose I am having expandable card, and in app.jsx I wanted to fire that particular card. And let's create this component right over here which will receive two props. What are the two props? As I said, it can be title, first thing first, title of the card, and it can be the content of the card. Simple. There are two properties that I wanted to receive. First one is going to be the title, and the second one is going to be the content. Now, after that particular thing is good to go, I will create a state as well. And why I will create a state? I wanted to check whether my card is expanded or not. And to manage this particular internally, I have to have a state for that, a memory for that. And for that scenario, let's try to create a const is expanded, and I'll say set is expanded. Initially, user state will be managing this as false. There is user state false. That means currently the card is not expanded, right? Now, what else? In this particular UI, what I wanted to return, let's suppose I want to return let's suppose a card. Okay, I will say, okay, let's suppose I'm returning this, remove this from here. I'll return one thing, this. I'll create a H3 or H4, let's suppose I'm having a H1, and I can pass the title, simple title. And after having this particular thing, what else I can have? After title, I can have a button to expand this, right? I will be saying expand, and on the click of the button, let's suppose on click of a button, I will be able to fire to check whether the state is true or not. So, what I can do, I can fire a function directly over here, and I can say set is expanded, is not expanded. Simple. Is expanded. Simple. Now, what else I can do? In this expand name button, I can fire certain thing. What certain thing I can fire? I can fire a JavaScript logic. I can show is expanded. If this is true, so I'll say show less. Otherwise, I can say show more. What I'm saying? I'm saying if the card is expanded, show less. If the card is not expanded, show more. And after this button is done, I will be tracking one JavaScript as well. What else can track? Is expanded. If that is a true thing, and I will check the content as well. Let's suppose I'm saying the p content as well. Whatever the content user is passing me, I will be able to fire that content. Now, let's suppose I wanted to use this expandable card right where I want to use this right over here. Remove this, and I wanted to use a separate card expandable card. I will be importing expandable card. Now in this expandable card, because I am managing the state internally, I have to still pass the title and the content, right? That means I need to pass the props. How I will be able to pass the props? I will be able to pass like this. I have to fire two things. First one is going to be the title, because it want to receive the title. Title, let's suppose, can be React state management session, and content can be, let's suppose I am firing a content as well. State is something interesting to learn. Let's suppose I am firing this. Now, if you come back to this UI wala part, you will be seeing actually कि I am able to see the state management session. If I click on this, I will be able to say state is something interesting to learn, and button is changing. Button is saying show less. If I click on this, button will be replaced by show more. Click on this, state is something. That means what actually I am using, I am using a state and props combination. And what I have created, if you can tell me in the comments what I have created using state and the props combination, what actually this is. It is a accordion. Can you see that this is an accordion that I have created? Tell me. Let me check comment. Hello, Vinod. Hi. So what I have created, guys, I have created a expandable accordion with the use of what? State and props together. So what actually state is doing over here? State is doing nothing but managing is my card expanded or not. And if the card is not expanded, I will reverse this certain keyword, and I will be able to pass the props as title and the content to show the title and the content as well. And that's how your state and props can come together, and you will be able to manage accordion, and you can say manage component very beautifully. Right now, what actually is happening in this scenario, you might be surprised to see that this is where one-way data binding come into picture. What do you mean by one-way data binding actually? Because when I was saying, if you have to understand what is one-way data binding, so let me just show you. Here that one-way data binding come into picture. Look at this. From where I am passing the data, tell me. From where I am passing the data, we will say parent. From parent I am passing the data, and from where you are sending actually, yes, I am sending the data from parent to child. So whenever your data flows down, that means top to bottom through properties, even the data can flow up through callback. There is no point about it. I can fire a callback, you can have a data up, but never ever it will be other way around. That means it cannot ever be other way around. That means child cannot share the properties to the parent. And why we wanted to keep this unidirectional? Because whenever something will be broken in React application, you will always be knowing where to go, because you know from the where, from which point data is coming. इसलिए होता क्या है कि आपको हमेशा से पता हो जाता है कि एक्चुअली डेटा आ कहां से रहा है, और जब आपको ये पता है कि डेटा आ कहां से रहा है, तो आप उसको आसानी से डीबग कर पाते हैं, राइट? सो इन दिस सिनेरियो, whenever something will be down in the React application, or let's suppose in this scenario something is down in this expandable card, or whenever something is done, I know from where the data is coming. It is coming from title content, that is coming from app.jsx. So I can directly debug this component, right? A component, the UI of a component certainly will be derived or determined by the props plus, you can say, state combination. But if UI is wrong, Only two things can be the problem. First one is wrong properties, there you are passing a wrong properties that UI is not able to handle, and you are managing the wrong state. And with this particular two-way binding, data source can be anywhere. That means the problem can be anywhere. So that's why we try to have a one-way data binding. We do not want to have a state and props together. So we'll be checking two pointers. First one is for the original component. Second one is for state, that is our own component. But whenever you want to have a certain kind of, you can say flow, that is called data down, event up flow. Ki whenever we want to have a certain data, ki when we are having a child and the parent, and we want to send something from data from top to bottom, but I want to fetch that particular event from top, that means bottom to top. How we can do this? Let's create one more example so you will be very comfortable understanding this. Let's suppose I wanted to have a card. What card? Let's suppose I wanted to have a shopping cart. So let's create a shopping cart. Shop cart. Let's suppose I'm having a shop cart dot JSX. Right? RAFC, a React component I'll take. What actually I want in this shop cart? I wanted to have a state. Listen carefully. What I wanted to have? I wanted to have a state. And for a state, what I wanted to have an item, and I wanted to have a function for set item. So let's create two state first. The state is const items. Let's have a set items as well. Is equal to, initially I'll have a user state, and in user state what I'll have an array or array of object. I can pass a certain, you can say object. First one is ID. Let's suppose ID 1, and I can have a name. Name can be let's suppose Vikas, and I can have a quantity. Not Vikas cannot be quantity. Let's suppose I'm having a laptop, and QUT. Let's suppose, yeah, let's suppose QTY. Quantity is, let's suppose 1. Okay, and I'm having one more object. Let's create one more object, and I wanted to have ID 2. Okay, and I wanted to have name. Let's suppose I wanted to have a name is watch. Okay, and I wanted to have a QTY, that is quantity, let's suppose 5. That means I wanted to have two parameters or two card that I wanted to show, but I also wanted to have a function which will tell the parent ki whenever the state is being changed, or whenever the new item is coming into the cart, whenever the new item is being deleted into the cart. That means for that I need to have a function. Let's create one function. Function is going to have handle. Let's suppose I want to remove certain part, so let's suppose handle remove. And how to remove any product? So I want to have a ID, so I'll say item ID. I will receive a item ID. Then in an item ID I can say set item, and I can pass the item ID. What I'll do, I'll say items dot filter, or item ID will not be the item ID. Simple. That means I can replace the new item with the existing one, or we can remove this. Now if something or someone is wanted to change the let's suppose someone want to change the quantity, I will create one more function. I will say, let's suppose one more function. Function is to handle the quantity change. The handle QTY change. Somebody want to change the quantity. So what I want to receive? I want to receive item ID in which you want to change the ID, or you in which product you want to change the quantity. Then I'll have new quantity. Which quantity you want to update? New quantity. Now what I'll do actually, I'll say set items. I will map that items dot map items dot map items dot map. I'll map each and every item with respect to item ID. I'll say item dot ID is equal to item id. If this is a scenario, I'll use a spread operator with me. I'll say item comma new quantity. Q2 by it will be replaced by new quantity. And if this is nothing like this, I'll replace is with colon item. Simple. What else? Did I something wrong? I have done something wrong. Where this? Okay, I need to close this. Two times will be the bracket. Then I'll have this one. Blue is closed, yellow is closed. Then what is there? What I missed something? Let me just check if I missed something. Again, I have to pass it. Let me just do it. Okay, one bracket was missing. Okay, fair enough. My bad. I missed one bracket. So what I'm actually doing, guys, I'm just saying कि whatever query I am passing, whatever the new quantity I am passing, I want to receive item ID and the new quantity that I want to replace. Then after I can return something, what I can return? Let me just return something, a simple UI. What I can return? A simple UI, a div. In div, what I can have? I can have all the item that we are having. Simple. I mean, I'm mapping each and every item with the item ID. I want to have a remove item ID. I can have a quantity change and on remove, handle remove, and I can have one more button that is called a simple quantity change. But what actually I am doing, you can notice one thing. The data is flowing from top to bottom. But if that is not the case, forget about this. If that is not the case, if I wanted to pass certain thing that is called I wanted to change the behavior from neither from top to bottom, I want to reverse it. I want to pass I will have a child component that will provide the value to parent. And for that, that concept is known as lifting the state up. Let me check the comment section. Do you guys have any about idea about lifting the state up? I remember. I tell me. Do you guys know what is lifting the state up? Anybody? Tell me so I can move. Because if you want to move ahead in state management or you can say Redux, etc., you need to have very comfortable journey in state and the props. Okay, let's try to have let's remove this each and everything. I will show you how you can lift the state up. This is your app component. Let's comment this. This is your let's suppose component which I want, and I remove this component. What I wanted to do actually, I wanted to provide certain thing. This is your parent, this is app, this is your child. What I want, I am having a component over here, okay, and I want to provide certain thing from here to here. But as I know, this is not possible. If I'm saying I want to return you can say child, and you will say this is not possible, sir, because the data cannot flow in opposite direction, because data will always flow in, you can say, top to bottom, that is parent to child. But what if I say I can do the reversal of it? Would you believe it? And that is a very important question that can be asked into the interview by the name of state lifting. Now, if I'm saying I wanted to have a child component which will provide me a username, and I want to show that username over here. So let's try to have a username. I'll say h1, the value coming from parent, or let's suppose child, is, and I want to show that value is, let's suppose, username. Simple. Now for maintaining a state, because there is a simple rule, you cannot violate the principle, you cannot violate the principle of having a top to bottom or unidirectional flow. So what I'll do, I'll take a state that is username, and I'll take set username as well, and initial state will be, let's suppose, initial state will be a empty string, and I wanted to send the username from the child component, and I wanted to show that username in that particular parent. That will be making sure कि I can say कि I can manipulate the state and I can lift the state up. I can pass the data from child to parent as well, rather than following the straight order of React that is saying from top to bottom only. So how could I do that? I will be taking an input over here. Let's suppose in child I'm having an input, and an input. Let's take a type text, and let's take a placeholder, enter username. Simple. I wanted to have a component which will give me an input, and input I will be loading it. Now every time certain thing will change, I'll have a on change. I'll say handle change, and after that, whatever I am typing on handle change, I wanted to do certain thing like this. I'll use const handle change is equal to event. What I want to set the value. I will able to print this. Let's suppose I am printing this child, and let's come back. What actually I am trying to say, let's try to come back. And if you come back a little bit on UI, you will be able to see कि whatever I am typing, let's suppose I am typing because, look at the console. That means on every time I am changing a value, whatever I am writing, the event is being fired, and I am able to print that particular thing. But that is only happening in the child. But what I want to show that value inside the parent, that is the h1. So that I can prove that I can also load the value from child to parent. So for that particular reason, what I have to do, I need to pass a props from the parent to child. I'll say username is equal to username, and set username is equal to set username. What I'm sending, I am sending a, let's suppose, function. Set username function I am sending into the child. Now I can receive that particular child into props, or I can, you can say, destructure it, username, and I can have set username. I can do like this. Now instead of printing this value, I can load that value into set username e dot target dot value. Rather than printing something, what I'm using, I am setting this particular value into set username. And what actually set username is? Set username is something that will set this particular username. Now if I want to have one more p over here, that will show the value that I am typing, the value from in child is, I can fire the same username over here. That means I am printing value two times, first one in the child, and second one, that value is firing from the child and coming to parent. Let's suppose I am writing because, look at this, whatever I am writing is lying inside the child as well, and it is also coming into the parent. So what actually I am doing, I am loading the data from the parent. Let's suppose the child. From where I am loading the data, I am loading the data from this particular child, I am transferring the value to the parent. But look at this code very carefully and you tell me, is this correct to say? Look at this. Is this correct to say that my child is passing the value? Tell me. Is this correct to say that my child is passing the value? Answer is no. Still in the child component, look at this. Still in the child component, I can say that my parent, that is a app, is sending the properties. Right? Now, let me check the comment if you're having any doubt. Do you guys have any doubt? You tell me. Otherwise, I will be moving to one more concept before we actually let you go for state management. That is called prop drilling. Now, if you don't have any doubt, let me show you one more concept that is known as prop drilling. So what I'll do, I'll create a one more file for you. Otherwise, it will be too much hectic in the same file. I'll say prop drilling. I'll create a new folder, prop drill. I'll install this. By the time I'm installing, you can ask your question if you're having any questions. I'm using prop drill, but where is this problem? Okay, I have done something terrible. I have just uh, created this inside that particular thing. Let me create this outside, so it will be good to go. What actually prop drilling is, till the time it is doing their task, let me tell you one thing. What actually prop drilling is and why it is a problem. Let's suppose there is a three component. One is parent, second one is child one, third one is child two. And I want to send the data from parent to child three or child two. What I have to do? You will say, sir, we have to pass the data layer wise layer. I'll just show you what actually I'm talking. Let it do first. Let's come to app.jsx. Okay, by the time it is going, let us complete the task. Okay, I'll come to app.jsx. I'll remove this. I'll say RAFC simple component. I'll create two more component, child one dot JSX, and I'll create child two dot JSX. Now you tell me one thing. Hierarchy is like this. App is there first, then child one is there, then your child two is there. Now, if I'm saying let's create one more child, child three dot JSX. I'm having child three as well. That means I'm having a three layer of hierarchy from parent to child to child two, child three. Now, what I want the hierarchy is like this. First, child one is there. Child one is there. In child one, child two is there. Child two is there. And in child two, child three is there. Simple. What is the hierarchy? I am having a hierarchy in inside app.jsx. I'm having child one. Inside child one, I have child two. In child two, I have child three. Now look at the output that they are throwing. They are throwing output as child number three. That means the hierarchy has been set properly. Now, what I want, let me just remove index.css as well. So we don't have it. Now what I want, I want to pass a data from app.jsx to child 3. So you will say, Ki, there is no possibility, sir, ki you can pass from A to B to C to D. What do you have to do? First, you need to pass from A to B, then B to C, then C to D. That's how your hierarchy works. A to B, multi-level hierarchy. Now, if I want, ki, if this is a case, let's suppose I'm having a data, let data is equal to, let's suppose this is the username. This is the data that I wanted to pass. What will happen? I will pass this particular data. Simple. In child number 1, child number 2 will receive this particular data, props, and it will have props dot, let's suppose const data is equal to props dot data, and I can pass that data over here directly. And if I don't want to destructure it, I will not be destructuring, no worries. And if I wanted to have child 2 or in child 2, I'll receive props. What I'll receive props, and I'll print that props. What I'll do, console.log props. And you tell me in child number 3 or child number 2, what will actually happen? Let's try to print this props, or let's suppose I wanted to have one more data. Let's create what I want. I will be having data is equal to props dot data. Simple. Now in child number 3, what I'll do, I'll receive that props and I'll print that props. What I am receiving, console.log props. And let's come back to this. I will receive child 3, control shift and refresh this. You will receive our data that is having a username Vikas. That means by doing this particular thing, I am able to transfer the property from the app to child number 3. But what I have to do actually, look at this. Let me just open this and I'll show you. What actually I am doing, guys, let's suppose I am having a component. Let's suppose I'm having a component. Inside A, I am having a B component. Inside B, I'm having a C component. Inside C, I'm having a D component. And what if I want to send certain data that parent is having to this particular layer? That means I have to come to 1, 2, 3 layer down and to send this particular data. Now, what is the better approach? The only approach that you currently have to worry about, there is no point of bypassing this hierarchy. You have to first transfer the data from A to B, then B to C, then C to D. But the question is, why they will be handling my data? Why they will be cooperating with me in order to pass my data? And just because they are sitting in the hierarchy between A and D, they are having a moral responsibility to pass the data? Answer is no. They can have their own problem to deal with. So, but problem is we are not having any solutions. We have to request the B component, please handle my data and pass it to the C. And I will request C, please pass it on to D. And this problem is known as props drilling. We are drilling the props from top to bottom in order to reach to the bottom of the node. But what if and why this is a problem? Why this is a problem? Tell me why this can be a problem. Problem is just because there will be a lot of chaos in that particular two component, A and B and C. Why? Because B and C are dealing my data without needing them. But is it a good solution? Let me tell you one approach that you can decide. If you want to drill property like this, A to B or B to C, that means if you are drilling the props from 1 to 2 levels, you are good. That means you can do it. There is no problem with it. You can do normal props passing. If you are dealing like this, A to B, then B to C, then C to D. If you are doing this can be tolerated, but otherwise situation is this: if your app is not growing, That means your app is static, then it can be tolerable. You can tolerate this. But if you are using 4 plus, that means A to B, B to C, C to D, D to E. If you are doing this, you have to think about a solution. Okay, if you want to do this, you have to think apart from drilling. Now, what is the solution that exists apart from drilling that we are going to discuss into the next session? Tell me, what are those? Any suggestion? So yes, suggestion is going to be the context API. First solution is a context API. Second solution is going to be Zustand, or you can say Redux. Second solution is going to be the Zustand. Third, and you can also use recoil. But recoil is not something Meta has been already deprecating this. So we are going to discuss this, but a little bit. But we are going to pick a lot of time. We are going to spend a lot of time in the next session on the context API, Redux, and Justand. That why we require these particular thing in order to solve that problem. Now, if you want to design any state, if you are designing a state, so what are the pointers that you should be remembering? So first thing first, you don't have to duplicate the state. Please do not duplicate state, do not make duplicate state, because by making duplicate state, you are reusing the variable, you are, you can say, reinitializing the variable or wasting the memory. And what else you can do, please try to keep your state as local as possible, because as I said, state is a, you can say, memory of a component itself. So please try whenever you are trying to have a state, please try to have a state locally. If you don't want to have local state, then you can utilize state uplifting that I have discussed in this session. You can pass this particular thing to common ancestor, there is a parent, and you will be able to pass the value from child to parent. Then what else you need to do? Please, whenever you want to have a shared state, please group them together. And whenever you try to keep those thing into your mind, whenever you try to keep these thing into your mind, your state management becomes much easier in order to do this. Now, tell me. Now tell me. Are you able to understand that what actually we have discussed, what we are planning? Because what I am making the, you can say, layout for, I am making a layout for a, you can say, greater state management. There is a global state management that we will be covering in Redux, Justand, context API, and recoil. Because if you do not know what is a state, you don't know what is props, how to pass props, what is a top to down approach, what is one way binding, and what do you mean by prop drilling, and what actually the problem that comes with prop drilling, you will be facing a lot of difficulties, you can say, capturing or you covering Redux, just stand or context API. Because there is a simple rule: unless you are not sitting or standing in the rain, you will not be able to realize the value of umbrella. So in this session, what we have seen what actually is the problem. Okay, then why we felt that, you can say, heat, we'd have to have a unidirectional flow, but we are not able to keep that flow because of the nested structure that is there. We are having A to B, B to C, C to D, and that is also same with hierarchy: single level, multi-level, multiple level, diamond level. These are the hierarchy that exist. So whenever you are having a multi-level hierarchy, or you can say 3 to 4 level of hierarchy, you either want to drill the prop, and that can be a good scenario that you are drilling the prop, but how much you can drill the prop, that should be a limitation to stop where not to drill the props. Or in that particular scenario, your context API, your Justand, your Redux come into picture. So whenever we'll be meeting in the next session, we are going to keep our full focus on the two libraries. That is going to be, the first one is going to be Redux, and second one is going to be the Justand. And I will also tell you an inbuilt solution to manage the state, that is known as context API. We are going to discuss context API, Redux, and Justand. And at the end, I will also tell you about a little bit of recoil because I have worked with all four of them. I've also worked with Redux, Recoil, Justand, and Context API. So in training as well, in development as well, I have used them all. So I will be able to guide you that what to use, when to use, and what to keep in your mind. Okay. So I hope you have understood this session very carefully that what is state fundamental and why we require state in first place. Right now, if you're having any doubt, you let me know. You can tell me what are the doubt. So before we wrap up the session, so you will be able to ask your doubt in this class. Let me check the comment. You tell me what are the doubts that you are having. Any doubt before we wrap up this session? Ask. No doubt. Okay, if you're having no doubt, then I'll show you in the next session because I didn't wanted to stretch the session a lot more because this is the fundamental session of state management. In the next session, we are going to keep you on the toes. We'll be writing a lot of code. We are going to write a lot of, you can say, logic in order to understand Redux toolkit, Justin, Recoil, and Context API. So till then, you take care, and I'll see you in the next session on Friday at the same time. Till then, take care and bye bye.